على أفضل الخلق وسيد المرسلين سيدنا وحبيبنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم ما أصبح بنا من نعمة فمنك وحدك لا شريك لك فلك الحمد ولك الشكر. We start in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we acknowledge that any good that we have, any blessing that we have is from Him and Him alone. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to surround us with His blessings always. There is a nice saying of one of the Salihin, Ibrahim al-Taymi. He says, ينبغي لمن لم يحزن أن يخاف أن يكون من أهل النار لأن أهل الجنة قالوا الحمد لله الذي أذهب عنا الحزن. And he says, continues, and I'll translate it in a minute. And he says, وينبغي لمن لم يشفق أن يخاف أن لا يكون من أهل الجنة لأنهم قالوا إنا كنا قبل في أهلنا مشفقين. We'll translate this in a minute, but we're in difficult times. SubhanAllah, alhamdulillah, we're in beautiful times in one sense. End of Ramadan, opportunity to gain tremendous blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, blessed nights that we're experiencing right now. But of course, we're not able to experience them in the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we've resorted to these virtual means. And there are many people struggling. People struggling with, being alone and the emotional toll of not having social contact and so forth. And, people struggling on different levels. Some people even struggling within their families, their wife and their kids and husband, mom, dad, brother, sister, and even with ourselves. But alhamdulillah, we have good news, and that is in this what we just shared with you. One of the righteous, he said that a person who has never experienced sadness should fear from being from the people of hellfire. Why? Because the people of Jannah, they say, Alhamdulillah alladhi adhaba anna al-hazan. That in Jannah, those that enter, may Allah make us from them, they'll say, all praise is due to Allah, the one who removed from us all sadnesses, which were the indication being here that they didn't reach that point until they had to go through life's difficulties. They didn't get to Jannah until they had to live a life of struggle, of toil. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. We've created humankind in toil and struggle. And so when we get to Jannah, then there's rest and relaxation. Then there's comfort. Then we're able to put behind all of those struggles. But until we get there, it's one struggle after another. And then this wise man, he also said, and a person who is not fearful should be afraid of not being from the people of Jannah. And he says, why? Because the people of Jannah say, Inna kunna qablu fi ahlina mushfiqin. That the people of Jannah, they say that we used to be in our in our families, worried and distressed, and that we weren't going to be saved. And so, subhanallah, ultimately, they were saved. Right? Ultimately, the ones that said these words, and we ask Allah to make us from amongst those that say these words when we meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after we've dealt with life struggles and we have to deal with all of these things. An interesting thing about this ayah, it says, Inna kunna qabalu fi ahlina mushfiqin. That we used to be in our families. We used to be with our loved ones, and that was our state of mind. So this is in the context of family, and that's the situation that we're in right now. So having problems in life that cause where we feel grief, we feel stress, these things are actually can be a source of great blessing if we understand that they are a source of blessing, and that is the process of life. Uh, some, like we said, some families are taxed out during these times. Some of our brothers and sisters have lost their jobs. The financial burden that they feel. Some of our kids, and personally, we're experiencing this. If you have children, they're going through the emotional difficulties of not being able to see their friends, not going to school, having to go to school online. Some kids are not able to attend graduation. They're not, mothers and fathers struggling with trying to keep their kids in line, and all of these things because of the fact that our life has been turned upside down. And actually, my work with the Khalil Center, we see this is what we do. We deal with people and their life struggles, and we are starting to now see the numbers go up. We're a nationwide organization where we deal with mental health, and now the numbers are starting to go up. 2 months into the pandemic, into quarantine, and now we are starting to see the effects, the toll that this has taken on people, and this is what they're saying: the stage 2 or stage 3 of the COVID-19 pandemic will be in the realm of mental health. Even after the hospitalizations and the physical illness end of it will start to be on the downside, but at that point, mental health challenges will start rising, and we're starting to actually see that in the work that we do. But we have good news. Our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that Inna Allah idha ahabba qawman ibtalahum. Said that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He loves a people, then He puts them through difficulties. He puts them different balaya, different tests and trials and struggles, so that if we understand it, can be a source of great comfort for us in ourselves, even though in the moment it's difficult to deal with all of the challenges and to deal with all of the emotions and to deal with all of the pain of life. It's not easy, but to keep that perspective that ultimately, if we persevere through this and we stay firm with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we put our dependence, our reliance on Him and Him alone, and we don't despair and we don't give up and we don't act in ways that are unbecoming for the mu'min, then ultimately then we would have passed these tests by dealing with them in the way in which Allah wants us to deal with them. So we accept the difficulties that come our way in life, and we realize that there will be this long-term benefit. And as Muslims, as believers, Muslims have the longest, the furthest vision. We're not short-sighted people. We have a long-term, a far-off a vision in terms of everything we try to achieve in life, because our vision is akhirah vision. We're looking for the next life. We're not looking for till tomorrow. We're not looking for immediate gratification. We're not looking till only tomorrow. We're not even looking for only, when you go to an interview or something like that, they say, where do you see yourself in 5 years or 10 years from now? The question that we ask ourselves is, where do I see myself when I leave this world? That's what we are getting prepped for. We're not getting prepped for just the short term. We're getting prepped for the long term. So Allah has placed difficulties, struggles, tests in our life, to help us to be in a good place in that long-term goal that we are shooting for. So we look at these trials, these struggles, these difficulties as a means to gain Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure, and not to drown in the trials and tests themselves. And this is where people go wrong. When the life struggles, they get really difficult. They don't realize that the solution is with Allah, but they look for solutions in the dunya, and they look for solutions in substances and material things to find gratification. But that's not how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created this world. You might be satisfied for 1 minute, but the next minute you'll be empty. And so the only way you can always be content, even though your life is full of struggle, is to be connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So having said all of that, we don't sit still, and we have to be active in trying to rectify our condition. That's why we have a great opportunity in these last 10 nights. We take our ibadah with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala serious, because this is the best bargain of the whole year. In these 10 nights, when we have the ultimate goal is what we are looking to be in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy, in His pleasure, and to enter into His Jannah. And the way you get there is by freeing yourself first from the hellfire. And so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to make us from those who are freed from the hellfire in these last 10 nights. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this was his way. It was always done in the family context, as we said earlier. In the last 10 nights, our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, إِذَا دَخَلَ الْعَشْرِ, as was said about him, when he enters into the last 10 nights, أَحْيَا اللَّيْلِ وَشَدَّ الْمِئْزَرِ وَأَيْقَظَ أَهْلَهُ, that he would revive the night in prayer, and he would, there's a couple of meanings for this phrase, that he would, in English we say roll up our sleeves. In other words, we're ready to get busy, ready to do what we need to do to make the best, to maximize our situation. And he would wake up his family for prayer. And said in some of the riwayat that the 20 nights of Ramadan would go, and the Prophet ﷺ, he would pray at night. But then in the last 10 nights, he would wake his family up. He would specifically wake up his family so that they could also join in the acts of worship that we engage in during the last night. So this time of staying at home and specifically at this time in the last 10 nights, we have the great potential of being a turning point in our lives, a point of change where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can open up our hearts, a point of important growth and rejuvenation and connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for us and our children and those in our families. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make these last few days of Ramadan a blessed time for us, where it is full of His barakat, it is full of His ibadat, and is full of everything good that we are striving to achieve. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.